Hello, and welcome back to the Conscious Environment Podcast. This week, I was able to sit down with one of my newest favorite high fantasy writers, and that's Michael Laborn. And we got a chance to talk about Black representation in media, why it's important, why it's necessary, and what to say to somebody when they try to convince you
it is.
Let's just
jump into it. So, Michael, introduce yourself for the folks. Let them know who you are and a little bit about the book, maybe where we can find you on the interwebs and all that.
Yeah, I am Michael, and I am notoriously very bad at talking about myself, despite really loving who I am. You can find you can find me here on this page, but you can find my book on dybpublishing.com. It is also stocked by Paperbacks and Frybread. It's stocked by some other indie bookstores too, but that's the one I'm going to send y'all to because she's amazing. And I am right now working on getting we just started with Paperbacks and Frybread. We just started a publishing company for Black and Brown folks, which we are very blessed to have had hundreds of submissions since we started just a month ago. So we are right now getting a couple of projects picked out and gonna mess with people soon.
Cool. I love it, man. It's awesome. What gave you... So when I was actually looking for like a headshot of you, I found that you've written a bunch of books. But this one is fantasy, and so I brought you on this live so that we could actually talk about representation and media, and high fantasy is kind of the biggest should Black people be around in it question of, like, I feel like the whole summer we've been having this like pseudo argument about whether or not Black people should be in high fantasy. Now, like, secretly, I know that we've been having this argument for like decades, but like it's been really, really, really hot this past summer because a bunch of production houses have been like, yeah, sure, Black people exist. Maybe they should be on dragons or whatnot.
It's so delightful that they just noticed.
Yeah, I know, they just found us. It's wild. So what is your take on, or if someone was to ask you, why is representation important, or what do BIPOC authors mean when they say representation? Is it just Black people existing, or is it more world building? What does that word mean to you when we use it?
I think it means different things to different people. When I use it, I'm saying two things. I'm saying that I want us, first of all, to exist in the worlds that are... Because first of all, when people write books, no matter what they're writing about, they are reframing the world that they live in. They are reframing this reality. Everybody does that. There's no original thought out there. We are all just reframing our actual experience. So because of that, every time someone reads a book, they are looking at the world through the lens of somebody who has reframed it to meet their needs and their specific ideas and their specific wants. And so for me, when I say representation, I'm saying that I want the people who create media to keep in mind that the things that they build are going to affect a world where we have to exist with less power than the people that are reading their books. So choosing to not include us, not only within the characters that are in their books, but in the framework of their world building, actually puts us in a position where the people who have power over us are free to not see us. And that's terrifying. So for me, representation is about helping people who exist in a kind of world where they don't have to see us. It's forcing them to see us. Putting us in fantasy forces white people to see us as a part of the real world. But also, I mean, creating a world where little Black kids can see Black people. Because like I don't know about like this new generation, they might have some idea, but we didn't have that. No.
I had Blade. I was Blade every year. Yeah, I mean, great. Yeah, but I was Blade every year for Halloween for like 4 years in a row because that was the superhero that I had, that I was like, yeah, I can. And even if I wanted to, like, I'll never forget, and these are kind of the anecdotal stories that I feel like every person of color, black person, has, is I remember, I think it was like elementary school, like early elementary school, probably too soon for me to be watching the movie Blade, but I did anyway. But
Same.
I remember that Halloween, um not even thinking I was dressing up as Blade, but I think I wanted to dress up as Batman or something like that. But it had just included wearing basically all black and like having like a cape. And I remember every house I went to, everybody was like, "Oh, you're Blade, you're Blade," and that's because
Yep.
I was just a black little black kid wearing all black. So I must have been like the recent character that they could think of. Like, it never occurred to them that I could have been dressing up as Batman or any other character. But now, with actually Batman is black in the comics right now, one run of them. But you also have Miles Morales, as Spider-Man, like kind of taking these characters and not even so much changing them, but having these characters uh, be black kids, and have little black kids be able to see themselves in these characters and not have to be like the black version of things.
Yeah.
Like, you have there's a name, like you have this, and you're able to do that. So I think, like, personally, that's why I think representation is so important, because fantasy is where we get to escape. Like, movies are super important to me and my family, and around the world. But like for myself, it's I'd like the escape, and it kind of sucks when you end up in a world where you're not there. You kind of have to imprint on somebody that isn't you, doesn't look like you, doesn't think like you.
It's painful for us. And it's also, like, to be honest, it's also terrifying that as a whole, escaping from reality means escaping to somewhere where we don't exist. Like, that's scary on
Yeah.
the other side, too, that's what they want. Like, it's terrifying.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's interesting to me that a lot of times they don't even think about the fact that there aren't black people there until we tell them, "Hey, there's going to be a black person there." Like, never really think about, in like almost 12 hours of movies, there aren't any black people in the Lord of the Rings. Like, and so much film, so much media. And this, I actually just recently made a video kind of talking about this, but like this idea of white as default. And I kind of want your take on this as a writer. Like, how do you not tackle this or get around it? But yeah, I mean, I guess, how do you handle your writing when a lot of times when we don't say that a character is insert whatever race that we want them to appear as, if we don't describe their appearance, the audience automatically assumes that they're white. So in your writing, how do you kind of tackle that idea that, no, these are black characters in a black world in a Afrocentric setting or whatever?
I put a lot of effort into describing them intricately, describing the colors of their skin, describing the undertones of their skin, describing their hairstyles. But I also, and this is really important to me, because we center whiteness because we center power. Like, when we're escaping from reality, we want to be somewhere where we matter. And so I put a lot of effort in my writing, whether that's short stories, whether that's fiction books, whether that's blogs. I put a lot of effort into having world building in a way that dismantles power, because I think that it helps people to see the world differently. And I think they're more willing to see us when we do that. So I do both of those things. I describe people in detail. And I always include, at least in every story I've ever written, I've always included at least one white character that I put a lot of tropes on for fun. And then I dismantle power, and I think that helps. But also, I center my marketing around, this is black.
Yeah.
And you're right. Like, even when I read books that are supposed to be black books, if they're not described that way, our nature is to see white people.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so I'm curious as to what are your thoughts on the food on the food thing when it comes to describing people's like the colors of their skin, like the tones, like I always hear like this kind of funny trope with writers is that like black people are always food or wood. So
Yeah.
how do you describe us, or does that is that not offensive to you? Does that not matter?
I find it very offensive because the majority of writers don't do that to white characters. They can describe the beauty of a white person's skin, even, and they do, without reducing them to something that's less than human. I'm not I'm not offended by it in thought, because there are foods and there are woods that have pretty colors, so I'm not offended by it in thought, but I'm offended by it because they don't do it to themselves. So
Right.
I don't do it. I just say what like people's color. There are so many variations of brown. There are
Hmm.
so many colors to use. You can talk about the dark umber skin or the reddish brown skin. You can say all of those things. I think anytime that you have to reduce a character to make people see that they're unique, that tells me everything I need to know about where the story's going, and I don't like it.
Right. Yeah, like yeah, like those two examples that you just gave are I instantly could see that tone. And I think that is kind of a nuanced difference. I think a lot of times white writers and white consumers oftentimes just see black people and they kind of have a thought of what that could look like or what that means, but just like black person is just in their head. Like when you say reddish brown, that's a very specific black tone
Mhm.
to me. Like that skin tone is very specific to me. I know exactly what that person looks like, but I don't know if a white writer would have that kind of nuance to be able to decipher amongst skin tones of black people, because I think a lot of black people see different black people and we understand their skin tones
Mhm.
so we can describe them better. I'm personally tired of reading about mahogany and or chocolate people. Um,
Right. I don't like. and
mahogany,
it
ebony, chocolate.
and like it
Um,
for me, it comes down to like they reduce us to what we've always been to them, because we've always been something to work with, to work around, and to consume in many different ways. And we're just done with it. We're done with it. You have to do better, white people.
right. Yeah. I just want to point something out to you if you didn't know this, because I learned this last week. Our comment sections are different. Michael, did you know
I
that?
I did know that.
So I have a couple here. I just want to let you know someone's speaking to you. But Anna said, as a reader, I love what you're saying. If you give me details, that's who I see, and I love that. And then she gave you a little plus. She co-signed what you were saying right after that. But yeah, I think a lot of white writers don't take advantage of just descriptors because book people are book people. They like reading a lot of they like reading for detail. That's the
Mm.
whole point, that you get more across in novelizations than you even can on screen. So I think that that's something that's super important to have as far as like details and things like that go. So I want to talk about, I guess, um, the elephant in the room. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on Ariel, Little
I
Mermaid?
am I have complicated thoughts because I am very excited every time that a major media outlet makes space for us. I'm very
Mhm.
excited for that. I'm excited for all the little black girls that are going to see themselves. I'm excited for all of the little white kids that are going to be forced to see us. Because
Right.
in my opinion, we don't change the world by convincing the bigots to stop being bigots. We convince the world by hanging our faces on their walls for their children to see in a positive light. Putting us in books, putting us in movies, that is going to enable the next generation of white Americans to see us as human beings, and we need that. So I'm very excited for that. On the other side of the thought, which is not negative about that, I am often disappointed that all of our effort in regards to representation is in making space for us in white companies instead of fighting for the black and brown artists who are already representing us. Like, I want to see the stories that are, there is a Black Mermaid story out there. I want to see that get pushed hard and be on the TV. I want to see that. But I want to see this too. I just don't want to see this only. So I have complicated thoughts, but I'm very excited for it. I'm going to hype it up, and I'm going to join every fight when white people come for it.
Yeah, I completely agree. There's a lot of stories, and that's what makes me really love what you're specifically doing, like kind of joining forces with the bookstore to form the publishing company. And we need more grassroots things like that to get these stories told, because for every person that says that's like, right, isn't that the initial pushback that we always end up getting? Why do you have to take our story? Why can't you make your own story? Yeah, but when we make our own story, you guys don't like that either. So, what are we supposed to do? Fine, we'll take the Disney money, right? Yeah, exactly. We'll take the Disney money and then kind of keep pushing forward these things. Like this weekend, we also have The Woman King coming out.
Very excited for that.
Right? Yeah, that's an amazing original story about an original group of. I think it's based off of the Amazonians, which. In the original marketing, they buried that was the name of the group, because I mean, could you imagine if they're like, yeah, it's a story about the Amazonians. They were all black, by the way. We don't talk about that part. You guys only think of Wonder Woman, but like they were real and all black women. Sorry, and I think a lot of people, they can't see past this zero-sum game kind of thing. If black people are in a role, that means that we forced a white person out of a role, and that I don't think is true. How do you feel about putting black actors in these situations? I'm excited to see it, but Haley is... I think actors have tough skin. I think you're underestimating what daily life in a white supremacist society is like for a black person. She was gonna get shit for this movie. She was gonna get shit for the next movie. She was gonna get shit for the next album that she put out. There was going to be someone who hates her just because she's black.
Yep, she is a black woman in America, and as a black woman in America, she did know this would be the response. And while I am very upset that it's the backlash, I'm very proud of her for choosing to fight for her community.
Yeah.
Very proud of her. So I want to be clear about that. I am upset that as the market, we are not fighting for black and brown stories. I am not upset that we are making space for black and brown actors.
Right. Yes, exactly.
So weird to me when I'm in a room with people who will loudly in a conversation with me defend us ideologically, but then when somebody says something racist in the room with both of us, they'll leave me to discuss it. That's not an ally to me. That's not useful to me.
Right. Yeah. It shouldn't be only on the black people in the room or the BIPOC in the room or whatever marginalized group is in the room's responsibility to defend themselves to the death over whatever has just come out of people's mouths.
And in regards to media, like what you were saying, that's exactly what it's like when the only thing that we see being produced are movies that defend us by making us other, by making us different. We can't have any space for it anymore. Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
I forgot that my description says "buy my book or I'll cancel you." So every time someone comments about it, it's funny to me.
Buy my book or I'll cancel you. Um, and so how do you feel about, or how should we tackle? I think I know your answer, but how do you feel about black coded characters? So
I
especially in high fantasy, we see this all the time. I think there's like a viral Chance the Rapper tweet. That's something like racism is gone. After the movie Bright came out, it was like racism is defeated because we all love orc now. Because the orcs were very like black coded in that movie the whole time. And that was like kind of the thing, was like you got to come together and love each other and we'll all get together. But they couldn't just have it be like just a black guy and a white guy. It was a black guy and an orc, but the orc was definitely seen as like the black guy. So as far as like high fantasy coding and things like that, when we're literally not dealing with humans but just humanoids, how, like how do you
absolutely black. That's a hard question because, in my opinion, I think most fantasy is black coded. I think that the things that white people use to escape, they want to escape the same systems that we want to escape. They just don't want to acknowledge that they exist. They want to escape classism. They want to escape the way that other people are other. They want to escape the way that they are marginalized and the way that people around them are marginalized. They just don't want to acknowledge that the marginalizations exist. And when they write their stories where they erase those marginalizations, they write characters about us. They write stories about dismantling things that actually affect us and don't affect them. I've talked about this before in regards to a lot of really popular series that millennials grew up on, that they use marginalization as a stepping stone to destiny. But it's always because they want to dismantle things that affect us. So most fantasy is black coded, and most fantasy characters are black coded to some degree. And for me, I don't necessarily want to say don't do that anymore, because it's hard not to when you live in a culture that has been built on the backs of black culture. Because America is black coded.
wow.
So for me, I don't care that they black code characters. I want them to stop pretending they're not doing it. I want fantasy writers to start acknowledging that that black culture has developed this industry. That black culture is what makes their books sell, is what makes their books useful, is what makes. I want media as a whole to start acknowledging and pouring those resources into acknowledging black culture, but also stop making us freaking animals and orcs. Like, just have a black guy.
Exactly. Just have a black person. Like, I mean, the other side of this coin is like, yes, we do have, the Princess Tianas of the world, but also, Princess Tiana, it turns into a frog like about 20 minutes into that film and turns back into a human about 8 minutes before the end of the film. Like, we see this all the time, like, not even just with black people, but like, Brother Bear, the native characters that get turned into bears literally in then the first act, and then they stay bears the whole movie, and then they become not bears at the end of the movie. This happens all the time with tons of characters. The one that like broke my heart, because I in the last few years have made it a habit to watch just the teaser trailer of movies and then not any other trailer. So I don't know anything about the movies. But one that like broke my heart was Soul. I was so excited for that movie. I was like, whoa, these like Pixar's doing it. Like these black characters are actually drawn like black characters, not just like white characters that are painted black. Like, they're actually black. I mean, you know what I'm talking about. Anime does this all the time, where they'll just be like, it's the same facial structure and everything. They just color them in more or not. But I was like, wow, they actually made like black looking characters in a black world. Like, it looks like he's in Atlanta or like Harlem or something. Like, this is amazing. And spoiler alert, he's like a cat for most of the movie. And I'm like, you guys were so close. You were
Yeah.
there. You were so close to us having a movie where we could follow a black character for the whole, like a black man for the whole movie. And another thing I've just seen recently, and I kind of want your take on this. I know we just talked about trauma, like as being like a plot point, and I know that's kind of hard because we need drama to make stories interesting. But I'm a little torn on like family dynamics being like the crux of things. Like I'm thinking of what was that movie? Seeing Red. It was the East Asian. I don't want to name one country because I can't think of I can't think of the name. I can't think of the culture specifically, but East Asian culture and family drama is the crux of what's going on. Like it's literally daughter versus mom. And I know before anybody says it, I know Meredith, that was the same thing, but that's like one. But like almost every single POC story I can think of is like child hates family or mother or something like that, and like that's the fight. It's like intergenerational tension is the problem. Like we don't have it's never like man versus environment. Like we don't have a bad guy to fight. It's always like an internal struggle. Right, yeah.
I'm
So
torn
like
because, like, on the one hand, I don't want that. Like, I don't want every story. I don't want there to never be two living parents. I don't want the dads who have always abandoned their kids. I don't want there to always be a fight between mom and daughter. On the other side of that, though, I think it's a fair representation on what the world has done to our families as a whole. People of color, our families are
True.
torn. Our families are ripped apart. And for a lot of our children and our people, seeing that on film gives us a space to address it and heal. And I think for that reason, it's good. But I don't want it to be every story. I also
Right.
want to see us reframing the world to what it's supposed to be.
Right.
So I want, and that's for me. Like I don't want an either or. I want to see both. I want to see the stories that let us look at our story and have our moment of realization and healing and clarity. But I also want to see the stories that have us dream and hope, and the stories that we just exist in and have nothing to do with us. I want that to be the majority of them. Like I want stories where I want there to be so many black and brown stories where white people could replace us and the stories stay the same, that we don't have to have this fight anymore. I don't want them to do that, but I want them to be able to, because I can't think of many black and, like you were saying earlier, I can't think of many black or brown stories that don't center the fact that we're not white. And so those aren't stories. Then they're our trauma. It's hard.
Yeah. Someone corrected me in the comments. That movie was Turning Red, where she turns into the red panda. But yeah, exactly. We don't get that chance to melt away. And I don't want to put you on the spot, but I heard you talk about this before. If you can remember, what are your thoughts on Mr. Harry Potter? Because I've heard you talk about this before, and you've said it honestly the best way that I can possibly. I can't repeat what you said. It was so good that I've sent your video to people. I was like, this is a great breakdown about Harry Potter. But like, yeah, that's a character that, and is black folk, we don't have a lot, black and brown people, we don't have a lot of characters like that we can just fold into, that are these kind of blank slate characters. And that is literally the most popular archetype in storytelling history, is this kind of blank slate hero character that you can imprint on, and then you go about the world or galaxy doing adventures. So what do you think about like characters like that, where it seems like their superpower is mediocrity, and then we kind of know what they look like?
I have a lot of thoughts about Harry Potter. I was a fan for a very long time. But I think there's this weird thing that Harry Potter does, which I don't think anybody will argue that that story uses marginalization as a stepping stone. It does. Um, but for me, the thing that I thought was most harmful as an individual was because it's a blank slate and because of the way that story is set up. I hate Destiny, and I've talked about this a lot. I hate Destiny existing in stories
Mm.
because what happened in Harry Potter's story was he's allowed to be mediocre, he's allowed to do nothing, he's allowed to be whoever he wants to be, and he's going to end up at success because he is at the end of the day, he is a very rich, very famous, very powerful person who was destined to be the most gifted person of his generation. And no matter how he fails, no matter how he's harmed, no matter how much marginalization exists, he's going to end up being the most interesting person in the story. And the reason I hate those stories being attached to blank slate characters is because while it did appeal to us marginalized kids, because it did,
Hmm.
there were black kids, there were gay kids, there were brown kids, there were marginalized kids who read that story and thought, I can come out of my cupboard one day. I will matter one
Right.
day. I will be powerful one day. But at the end of the day, what that story actually did was it told all of the little rich white kids that they could put their face over our story, that everything they achieve, everything that they get access to, all of the money, all of the fame, all of the power, that was them working hard for the thing that they deserved. And it turned marginalization into a stepping stone to privilege. And it promised us a future and then took it away. So for that reason, I don't like that. And it almost it doesn't almost, it does. It reinforces the pull yourself up by your bootstraps thought because at the end of the day, it's an obstacle to what he can achieve. It's an
Right.
obstacle, and I just I don't want stories that give us white characters where my story is an obstacle for them because it's not an obstacle for me. It's my whole freaking reality, and that's the way that it is for
Right.
all marginalized people. Our reality is that cupboard. I want to see if they want to talk about it. I want to see them talk about it from within the cupboard. I want to
Right.
see stories about Harry Potter from within that cupboard, and it's just not what they're giving. They're giving. Um, Here's what you could be if you'd work a little harder, Negroes.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Because for black characters, and I think this is kind of a good place for us to rest on. For black people, why representation matters so much to see us in normalcy is that black people don't get a chance to see ourselves being normal, and then we don't get a chance to also have an escape where we don't have to imprint on someone who doesn't look like us. We don't get the chance to, like, the cover for Harry Potter is our skin, what we live in every single day. We don't get to come out of the cupboard. We don't get to take
Yeah,
that off. We don't get to just be different, a different person as soon as we discover ourselves and realize we're a wizard. Or realize we're a wizard. Like the couple of black characters that are in Harry Potter, they're the black wizards. Everybody points out that they still see them as the black characters, and in that film, in that series, even like the stage play where Hermione's played by a wonderful black actor. Nope, we have to acknowledge that this is the black Hermione. That's on the
yep,
stage play. That's the black Hermione. It's not just who Hermione is. And you could say it to your blue in the face that in the books, who she is literally never described. And that was wrapping back around a perfect example of white as default. Her skin tone is never described in the book. They don't say what she looks like other than she has curly hair and she's like whimsical or something, or it's something about her personality and like just her hair type is that her hair is curly and she's smart. Fine. But yes, that could be a black person. There isn't a reason why she needs to be white other
yep,
than they want her to be white. And I think that that is an important thing for representation, is to start seeing black people in positions where their blackness isn't central to the plot. We don't need to be black. We just are black because in reality land, we are black. Your doctor may be black. Your dentist may be black. Your lawyer may be black. Your boss may be black. And they don't have to just go. It doesn't have to always just be struggle that we go through in order to solve or get to these points. But that's why representation in media is super duper important, because we need to just normalize the fact that we exist.
Yeah.
And you can't get rid of us. You're not getting away from us. Even in your dreams, we're going to be there. So Michael, tell us a little bit about your book. Remind us where we can get it again, and where we can find you and support you and all that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. My book is about identity. It is almost everybody is black. But you could replace this with a white character and still get the same story. So
Ooh.
we're in the same spot. Don't do it though, because I'll come for you. This book is very much about struggling through the intersection of privilege and struggle. It's about a couple of characters who have kind of been they're heirs to a throne, but they're also have been taken from their families and from their cultures, and they don't really know who they are, and they're struggling to find their identity with a lot of magic, a lot of fighting, a lot of trauma, because I'm absolutely an evil writer. But yeah, it's a good story, and you can find it on dybpublishing.com, or come to my page and watch all the videos where I talk about it and give you links.
Cool. Well, thank you, Michael, for coming on and hanging out with me for show the cover of the book. It's dope, because the cover of the book is dope.
Black people,
look at that pretty black lady. Yeah. What are the magic powers? Give me, if you could have one magic power from your book, what would it be? Is there just
it's
that?
Actually, it's a power that I didn't explain yet, so I'm not gonna answer.
Dang it.
Buy book 2.
All right. You gotta buy the second book. Can people fly? Can you fly in that book?
Some characters would be able to. Nobody's done it in this book. Maybe I'll put it in the second one just for you.
Nobody's been able to.
Just so you all know, I wrote a scene today about a creamy noodle with breadcrumbs on it, and I might put it in there just to spite Portia.
You should also
this morning in anger.
You should also name the character that cooks it Portia.
Oh, absolutely, I will.
Oh yeah. Just let her know. Just let her know. All right. Well, we're gonna hit it, but thank you again so much, Michael, for coming on and hanging out with us. I'm gonna be doing this every week, so hopefully I'll have you back on a little bit for the sequel. But please go buy Michael's book. I have to pick up a copy of it. He was back ordered before, so get your orders in so that
I'm caught up for now, but feel free to sell me out, everybody.
Yeah. Keep selling them out. But thanks for hanging out, guys. We'll talk to you later. Bye.
Hey, what's going on, folks? I hope you guys enjoyed that as much as I enjoyed recording it for you. And please do remember, we do this live every single week. So every Thursday, Eastern Standard Time, 7 p.m., we are live on TikTok. And my TikTok is IDEFOverthink, IDEFF Overthink. And check it out. We do the show live. There's a lot more content there because you can't really squeeze it all into the podcast here. But hopefully I'll catch you guys there. If not, I'll see you next week with another great topic and another great guest. Peace.